Imagine being told the war will be over by Christmas. Imagine packing light, kissing your wife, hugging your children, walking out the door, and absolutely certain you will be home before the snow falls. Now imagine that promise rotting in the mud. 4 years. 16 million people dead. Empires erased from the map. And it all started with one car taking a wrong turn. This is the story of the war that broke the world, and nobody, not a single world leader, not a single soldier, not a single mother watching her son march away, nobody saw what was really coming. Welcome to the Knowledge Relic, where history is not just studied, it is felt. If you are new here, subscribe right now. Because what we do on this channel will change how you see the world, and trust me, you do not want to miss what is coming. Now, let us go back, all the way back to 1914, to a continent that was sitting on the most dangerous powder keg in human history and had no idea it was about to explode. To understand World War I, you need to understand something that most people get completely wrong. Europe in 1914 was not at peace. It was a performance of peace. Underneath the surface, underneath the royal banquets, the trade agreements, the diplomatic handshakes, every major power on the continent had been quietly, obsessively arming itself for decades. Germany was building the most powerful land army the world had ever seen. Britain ruled the seas with a navy so dominant it made other nations tremble just looking at it. France still burned, still seethed with humiliation from losing the Franco-Prussian War 40 years earlier. Russia had the largest army on earth, but it was poorly equipped, poorly led, and stretched across an empire so vast it could barely feed itself. And then there was the Austro-Hungarian Empire, ancient, creaking, terrified, holding together a patchwork of nations and peoples who mostly hated each other. These empires had locked themselves into two massive alliances, like two gangs, watching each other across the street, hands on weapons, waiting. On one side, the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria, Hungary and Italy. On the other, the Triple Entente, France, Russia and Great Britain. Military planners at the time had a theory. They called it deterrence, the idea that if everyone was armed enough, nobody would dare fire the first shot, that the alliances would keep the peace, that mutual destruction was too horrifying to risk. They were wrong. And the match that lit the fuse was not fired by a general, it was not ordered by a king or an emperor, it was fired by a 19-year-old boy standing on a street corner eating a sandwich. His name was Gavrilo Princip, and the date was June 28, 1914. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the entire Austro-Hungarian throne, was visiting Sarajevo in Bosnia. His security team knew there was an assassination plot. They had been warned, and yet the motorcade route had been published in the local newspapers. The schedule was public knowledge. The first assassination attempt came early in the day. An assassin threw a grenade at Franz Ferdinand's car. It bounced off the folded-back convertible roof and exploded under the car behind it. Several people were wounded. Franz Ferdinand himself, remarkably, was unhurt. He continued with his schedule, attended his official reception, and then decided to visit the people injured in the explosion at the hospital. His driver was given the new route, but nobody told him clearly enough, and on the way to the hospital, the driver took a wrong turn. He turned onto Franz Josef Street, realized the mistake, stopped the car, and began to reverse. He had stopped directly in front of Gavrilo Princip, who had spent the morning believing the mission had failed, who had wandered away from his post, who was standing outside a deli eating a sandwich when the most important car in Europe rolled to a stop 10 feet in front of him. Princip stepped forward. He raised his pistol. 2 shots. Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie were dead within the hour. And those 2 bullets, fired in confusion at point-blank range by a teenager on a street corner, would trigger a chain of events that would kill 16 million people, destroy 4 empires, redraw the map of the entire world, and plant the seeds of an even more devastating war just 20 years later. What happened next moved with terrifying speed, and here is something important to understand. It did not feel like a choice. It felt like an avalanche, like something nobody could stop even if they wanted to. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia for the assassination. They issued an ultimatum, a list of demands so humiliating, so invasive, that it was almost engineered to be rejected. Serbia agreed to almost everything. Almost. It was not enough. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia on July 28, 1914, exactly 1 month after the assassination. Then the dominoes fell. Fast, almost mechanically, as if nobody was actually driving anymore. Russia began mobilizing its armies to defend Serbia. Germany told Russia to stop. Russia refused. Germany declared war on Russia. France, allied with Russia, began mobilizing. Germany declared war on France. And then Germany made the decision that pulled the entire world into the fire. They activated the Schlieffen Plan. This was Germany's master strategy, a plan that military minds had spent decades refining. The logic was coldly, frighteningly rational. Germany sat between France to the west and Russia to the east. A war on 2 fronts simultaneously would be a catastrophe. So the solution was simple. Knock out France first. Knock them out fast, 6 weeks, then turn around and deal with Russia before they could fully mobilize. The fastest route to France? Straight through the neutral country of Belgium. When German troops crossed into Belgium on August 4, 1914, Great Britain, which had signed a treaty guaranteeing Belgian neutrality, declared war on Germany. Just like that, in 37 days, 7 of the world's major powers were at war. And the people, the ordinary people in the streets of London, Paris, Berlin, Vienna, they cheered. They actually cheered. Young men lined up to volunteer by the hundreds of thousands. They wore flowers in their rifles. They believed it would be glorious, quick, heroic, over by Christmas. None of them had ever seen what modern industrial weapons could do to a human body. The Schlieffen Plan failed. Germany advanced deep into France, almost to Paris, and then Allied forces held, pushed back, and both sides did something that would define the next 4 years of the war. They started digging. Trenches, an unbroken network of them stretching nearly 700 kilometers from the English Channel all the way to the Swiss border. Both sides burrowed into the earth because the alternative was dying on top of it. Because here is what nobody had fully grasped before this war began. The weapons had evolved, but the tactics had not. Machine guns could fire 400 to 600 rounds per minute. Artillery shells could land with no warning, just a whistle, and then oblivion. Barbed wire stretched across no man's land in endless, rusting tangles. And military commanders, trained in an older way of thinking, still believed in infantry charges, in massed formations of men walking across open ground toward the enemy. On July 1st, 1916, the first day of the Battle of the Somme, the British Army suffered 57,000 casualties. In one day. 57,470 men, dead, wounded, or missing before the sun went down. That is not a dramatization, that is not an exaggeration, that is what happened when men in formation walked into machine gun fire. The Battle of the Somme lasted 4.5 months. Total casualties on both sides reached over 1 million men. Territory gained? Approximately 12 kilometers. And inside those trenches, life was a kind of hell that defies description. The mud of Flanders was not just wet ground, it was a living nightmare. Shell craters filled with water and swallowed men whole. Horses, thousands of them, sank into the ground and were simply lost. A condition called trench foot, caused by standing in water for days or weeks at a time, could cost a soldier his legs. Rats fed on the dead. Lice were everywhere. Men developed what doctors called shell shock, what we would now recognize as post-traumatic stress disorder, from the relentless, random violence of artillery fire that could kill the man next to you without a single second of warning. And then there was the gas. In April 1915, near the Belgian city of Ypres, German forces released over 160 tons of chlorine gas. Soldiers, watching from the Allied lines, described a yellow-green cloud rolling toward them across the ground. Those who ran fast enough survived. Those who didn't suffocated as the gas destroyed their lungs from the inside. Mustard gas came later. It did not kill quickly. It burned the skin. It blinded the eyes. It left men screaming for days, sometimes weeks, before death finally came, or they recovered into a life they would never fully live again. And through all of it, the mud, the gas, the rats, the endless artillery, the men stayed. Because going back without orders meant cowardice, and cowardice in wartime could mean a court-martial, or worse, execution by your own side.